Hey, Luan. Hey, Anthony. Welcome to the His and Her Money
Hey, you
Show.
guys.
Hey,
Hey,
how are
how's it going?
you?
We are well,
Amazing.
and we're glad to have you because you guys are another shining example of what debt freedom looks like. And
Yes.
we're glad to have you here to share your experience and your journey to debt freedom to inspire others to do the same. But before we jump into your story, can you say hello to everyone that's tuned in and let them know what you are all about?
Hey guys, I'm Luan. This is my husband Anthony,
Hey.
and we are just excited to be, a part of the debt-free journey. We take, I guess, we have not always necessarily been on that journey, but we've had a lot of different things that shift our mindset. And we're looking forward to bigger, better things, multiple streams of income before we start a family. So that's kind of what we've got going on.
Awesome. What's so great about your story? You guys are a part of our new series, our latest series called In the Middle, where we're showcasing people that have paid off some debt. They have not finished paying off the entire debt, but they have definitely made some progress. So we're so excited to be able to talk with you guys on today, so you guys can share a little bit about your story. So if you can just give us a little recap on how do you guys currently handle your finances, right? Prior to you getting into this entire debt-free journey, how much debt have you guys paid off thus far? How much is your total debt in general? And then how much have you guys paid off? Because from my understanding, you guys have paid off your credit card debt currently, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about that.
So our current financial situation, we have a house that we have, and we have her student loans that are left. Outside of that, we've, as you said, paid off all of our credit card debt. And I know just for me personally, I had about 20K in credit card debt, and her number is a little bit different than mine, so I'll let her explain those.
Yeah. Long story short, mine was pretty much about the same 20K. It kind of went up and down. Um, I guess kind of where that happened is I had two credit cards and then I had my personal line of credit. And in in literally 1 year, I totaled two cars, which whose fault it is, it doesn't really matter. But they were both kind of freak actually. But what I did was I actually used my personal line of credit to buy new cars both the times because I figured that would actually wind up being cheaper than getting a car note, which proved to be correct. And then so in that, with it going up and down from buying a car, I paid it off. A couple months later, totaled another one, slowly paid it off, and then hit the credit cards. That's kind of how I escalated all the way up to the full 20. And then again, we both finished paying off our credit cards back in March.
Back in March. So we saw you guys on Instagram. You all posted an amazing picture that you guys paid off $15,000 in credit card debt in 7 months, right?
Correct.
That
Mhm.
is remarkable. So was that the entire credit card? Was that combined? Or did you guys definitely pay off the 20,000 and the 20,000, 40,000 combined?
So that was the 15,000 was combined. So that's the amount that we had from the day we got married. So we got married in August. And so like we were very like, we had finally had joint accounts. So we looked at each other, we were left. And then it winded up being 15, in between 15 and 16K. And
So
then
you
we were like,
guys were paying off your debt, it seems like, prior to getting married. You all started the process separately.
we did, but we
Correct.
we weren't calculating it as well or really even putting a time frame on it. But when we got married, we actually put a time frame on, okay, when do we want to kind of have our credit card debt paid off? Now we're working on like when's realistic, when do we want to get these student loans taken care of? And then from there, like when do we want to be mortgage free as well? So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's great for a lot of you couples that out there that are listening. Maybe you're not married. Maybe you guys currently are on your own individual financial journeys. And I think that that's so important that you both decided that you guys needed to make a change prior to getting married. But then when you all got married, you all really put a little oomph in that.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's rewind just a little bit because, like you all have shared, this journey began before the wedding. You all were, even though it wasn't like an organized effort,
Right.
you all something told you all that, I need to be paying down on this. I shouldn't have this much credit card debt. Talk about even that, even though it wasn't like this blueprint that y'all laid out, something sparked in both of you all's brain, because you both looked at your credit card debt, your lines of credit, and you was like, I need to get this down. Why did you think that? Because a lot of people, they just are good with minimum payments, and just going through the motions, but you all felt the need to try to at least attack your debt somewhat. Talk about what sparked that.
I would say for me, it kind of began in college. Just so we were kind of associated with a multi-level marketing business team, and so that, I guess, started sparking us to think differently about multiple different things, like just about how income is made, the way people live, things like that. And there's a phrase that basically says, like, if you have to make payments on something, you can't actually afford it.
Yeah.
And so I think it was just little things like that, reading certain books. Actually, I'm in the process of doing this again now, but like going through my Instagram feed and like almost being very conscious of even what I'm seeing when I'm going on social media. So like following people that are on debt-free journeys, just kind of like what I'm putting myself in front of on purpose, as well as some of the mindset that I've gotten. Like I said, from reading certain books, from listening to certain audios or certain podcasts. And then, of course, when we got associated with that business team, and kind of just like when you introduced to a new mindset and you start to yearn for more. And I started being like, wow, like this is so true. I don't want to be a slave to Visa or the government or Sally Mae or or anybody else anymore. And like if I have to make payments on something, they're right. Like technically I can't, like you can't really afford it, right? And then just with my personality, I felt like also seeing those numbers almost starting to give me like anxiety. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't, I feel like I can't do anything or can't function.
Yeah, there were a couple times when she was kind of like breaking down and crying, and you know, I honestly, for the first time, didn't know how to deal with that type of situation. So it was a kind of a hurdle to jump over that, and then try to deal with finances on top of that. But also for me, I had read like Rich Dad Poor Dad and other books that kind of pushed me in that direction a little bit earlier. So I was always thinking about it um, for the future, but not necessarily at that point. So I was like, I'll do what I have to do to get through college, you know, pay what I have to pay. But ultimately, after college, is when that journey is going to start.
So, walk us through your individual journeys prior to getting married. What was your approach in paying down your debt? Because you guys paid down a little hefty amount. For you all to have $15,000 in combined credit card, how much money did you pay off? How much money did each one of you pay off prior to getting married towards your own debt?
Um, I probably still had the most. So he probably paid like a good 15 on his
So
own.
I paid off the majority of mine, and then
A lot
we
of it
were
was mine.
How did you do
so
that?
I took I took a list of like everything that was a necessity and everything that was, you know, outside of that. And then I just started cutting things. It
We both also moved out of our roommate situation and moved back home because we were like, if we temporarily have to move home to save money,
Yeah.
it's worth it as long as our parents were okay with it, which they were. So we understand not everyone has that option, but
Yeah.
as miserable as it was, because I know for both of us, it ended up being an hour and a half to 2 hours drive to work. But I was like, we can do it for 2 years if that means we get this, money under control.
Yeah, so that was one of the things. I actually didn't go live at home. I went and stayed with a friend on a couch. And he was like, "Hey, you know, just throw me some extra dollars when you can." And it was a nice commute from there to work, which was always fun with Atlanta traffic. Um, but that I started eating pretty terribly, actually. Um, a lot of ramen noodles and just a lot of the cheaper options, the flavor right, you know. So that's mainly what I took out was that, and then going out and during like, you know, certain times of the weekend and doing extra activities, I cut all that stuff back and just kind of focused on my core of just getting out.
So, Anthony, was your mindset, because I think this is a good conversation to have, because I remember prior to getting married, I too started putting, my financial affairs in order, because I knew that one day I was going to, join forces and become a union with my now husband, but he was my boyfriend then. Was that always on your mind that you were trying to chip away at this debt because you did not want it to be a huge burden on the marriage? What was your mindset in paying it off as you did? Because I'm assuming, how much money did you pay off prior to getting married?
I paid off about 15.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what was your mindset? Why? Was it because you were getting married? Was it that you just wanted to better your financial, life prior to marriage? What was the reason?
So I'll take you back a little bit. There was a lot of stuff when I grew up. I'm from a family of 7. So when I asked for stuff, it was mostly no when I get it. So a lot of like, hey, I want these type of things was kind of pushed off to the future. So I've always wanted to, have money to be able to buy those type of things. And at the moment, like that wasn't a current priority of mine. It's my priority was to get through school, so I could invest that my college degree into making more money, and that's a lot of what drove me from, just deciding to live on somebody's couch for a while.
Talk about communication, because clearly you all had to figure out the communication piece, and you all did that. You all had some tough conversations. You talked about tears and anxiety and feeling stuck and can't do anything. And then you both decide, let's move out of our apartments. Luan goes home. Anthony goes, sleeps on a couch and eats noodles every day. I mean, that's a lot of discussion, right? And it's a lot of couples listening that can't have that discussion with their spouse. They struggle.
Or soon-to-be spouse.
Or soon-to-be spouse.
Yeah.
They struggle with even talking to each other about money. How come you all were able to not only talk about money, but to have tough conversations about money, make tough decisions jointly about money?
So for a while, it was kind of me driving the conversation of, hey, let's do this. And to be very honest, there was a lot of pushback at first, even for things like in the wedding, just being like, hey, this is, money talks are always difficult because somebody's expectations are going to have to be lowered on, what they want from what they've seen or what they'll get.
Right.
So that was a really big thing. I kept pushing the issue, and she for a while was avoiding it and just kind of like, I don't know how to say it. You probably say
yeah, I would. I mean, I just I would always be like, why do you want to talk about it all the time? But I think it did wind up coming down to like, kind of like, what do you want now versus like, what do you want most? And I knew that like, even though I was just like, well, we can at least wait a little bit till the wedding's over. Like realistically, like it's already a ridiculous amount of money people spend on a 6-hour day. So I think as it kept kind of going, I kind of being like, okay, this is what is more and more important. This is what is not. We had the conversation anyway. Mm-hmm. And maybe because we also did premarital counseling, that always comes up in any premarital counseling. But I think for that time that we were getting married, I definitely wanted to avoid the conversation versus like before we were even engaged, we did start talking about financial things. But even then, where we go to after the wedding, where we put like a timestamp on everything, we moved into a new home and we really don't have any new furniture. But again, we kind of were like, okay, what do we want most versus what do we want now? And we were like, if we at least get the credit card debt paid off, right, then that basically gives us more income that we're not spending on minimums. And then we can then rebudget. We can then be like, okay, once a month, we can treat ourselves finally to maybe a piece of furniture or whatever. And then we still need to aggressively now work towards the student loans. So I think it's tough because sometimes, I think we both still have our moments every so often where we're like, we want to do this, we want to do that.
Yeah.
But again, I think we've gotten really good at also never being down at the same time. Like one of us might be down, but the other one of us is always up per se. And then always keeping the goal in front of us, like look at how much more we'll be able to do when we don't have to make these payments, or look how much freer.
Yeah.
I mean, I said, I think for almost every day for a month after the credit card, I was like, man, I just feel so free. And I haven't even, like, people need to understand, like, you don't even know what that'll feel like till you do it. There's such a free feeling that you get from that.
Yeah. And one of the things that I got really acquainted with was telling her no.
Right.
So she was like, hey,
It's true.
can we buy this? And I'm like, no, like, you know, there's stuff that we want to, I want to get stuff too. And I tell her even something as simple as, hey, my coworkers are going out to lunch. Can I go out to lunch? I was asking her that question too.
Right.
And, you know, I felt like it kind of built that trust of, hey, you're not like, I'm not, we're both in this situation together. So,
right.
you know, we're both kind of like moving towards our goal.
Yeah, accountability is so very, very important. I know even in our marriage, sometimes people are like, "Oh, you got to ask for that." It's not me asking; it's respect and it's being accountable,
Agreed.
and vice versa. You know what I mean? It's not like we're asking for to buy, a can of pop or something. But especially when you have goals and
Right.
you have large goals in front of you, you don't want to get off track. And so I love that accountability. That is so very important. I also like how you guys came on one accord. And I mean, you all knocked off $15,000 of credit card debt in 7 months. That's laser focus.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that. Like, I heard you say that you all don't currently have a lot of furniture and things like that. And I like how you all are, again, keeping the goal in front of you. What were some of the things that you all did to knock off $15,000 worth of debt in 7 months?
Not really eating out at all, which was a big one. I had
Yeah.
friends' weddings that I had to be a part of. So setting like a budget on like how much I could spend on this or that or whatever, to like putting that aside kind of at the beginning, that helped. Like, okay, this is kind of like as much as she's gonna get for me being so everything that she has better fit in this allotted money.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'd take a portion of my check, so about like 40%, and I just automatically throw it onto, our credit card. And then from there, I was like, we got to live on, what's left.
yeah, so we almost like did it backward. That's actually exactly what we did. Almost like paying off the credit card was a bill. So we put that money first and was like, now we have to figure out how to not die and live with whatever's left. It was really a lot of that, really a lot of not eating out. Outside of our honeymoon, we really like hadn't gone on vacation up until our honeymoon. We basically never went on vacation, and then even then, and that part of that was even a gift from a family member.
Yeah.
So that wasn't even us paying for the whole honeymoon. But outside of that, it was like no trips, no going out all the time. I know for me at work, my coworkers, I don't even know how they afford it, but they eat out breakfast and lunch every day, probably dinner too. But it was like both of our breakfast and lunches were packed every single day.
Yeah. And one of the things when she was like, when I saying that we needed to have date night, I was like, hey, let's go to Taco Bell. But she doesn't like that. And I know it was always a joke, but it was something that, kept our minds focused.
Yeah, date nights in the house. We didn't really even go to the movies or anything like that. We just literally just stayed right here. I told family from early on, I was like, we're not doing Christmas gifts this year because this is more important. My mom was the only family member that got a Christmas gift.
I don't even think we got each other gifts.
We did also chose not to give each other Christmas gifts. We said that our house was our next Christmas and birthday gifts.
Yeah.
So that was that. What else did we do to stay laser focused? We really didn't buy anything.
Yeah, we just our house was bare bones. There was no couch. We were sleeping on the little inflatable mattress that I had from my mother had given me.
For a little bit.
For a
We
little
wanted
bit,
up
so.
deciding to get a mattress, but
She gave it to me, and because she had like millions of those things, so she was like, we slept on that for a while until we found a bed that was on sale and was really good quality. So we definitely tried to stretch in every area, from comfort and eating and just luxury to really get to that goal.
Love reading, but wish you had more time to get into your favorite books? What if you could use the time you already have and listen to the books you already love? Well, now you can with Audible. With Audible books, you can be inspired, entertained, and educated anywhere, anytime. Choose from the bestsellers in self-development, business, nonfiction, and more. So what are you waiting for? Your first 30 days are free. Visit hisandhermoney.com/audible to get started today. That's hisandhermoney.com/audible.
Now you all had, this great plan. You all were eye to eye, hand to hand. You guys were making these sacrifices, but man, y'all also had plenty of reasons to quit, because you all get married, you all graduate college. Anthony is like not finding a job at first. That could be a reason to get discouraged and give up. You all figured that out, and Luan tears up 2 cars. 2 of them, not 1, but 2 cars. And it's like each time you got to go and get another car, right? And so that's a hit on your motivation. How come these things? This would have took a lot of people out. It probably has taken plenty of people off track when they are trying to do the right thing with their finances. How come you all were able to take these blows and keep moving forward?
I feel like for me, it's because we never stopped putting the positive in. And people have to realize that, like, what you're surrounded with, what you're hearing, things like that, like, it could totally makes a huge difference. So it was like still listening to the audios, still, reading the books, even the association, like who you choose to associate with. Because I started kind of even dialing back on people that I was like, these people like spend money frivolously, versus like I have another girl that I admire that I kind of follow on Instagram, and her journey just kind of like kept me inspired. And then out of my like close group of friends, I have 2 of them in there that are kind of like similar but different, but they're, them and their husbands are working on like, okay, how do we get out of debt? So it's also kind of having that community. And I know not everybody always has that, but again, sometimes you have to change your association. You will be in life, they say, where you are in life, or you will be in life where the people that you spend the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So it all kind of comes together. And so for me, I can't say that it's for him, but it was literally, even during those hard times, not changing kind of what I was feeding myself, because it was that kept me encouraged. Like, okay, this is another sucky thing. And I'm very emotional, so I am probably going to cry about it and mope about it and possibly even be angry about it for a week or even 2. But again, it doesn't give me the excuse to revert.
And me, I was always looking at the numbers. So
yes,
every day, like there was sometimes like 5 or 6 times I'm looking at our bank account. I'm looking at all these numbers. I had a whiteboard where I was writing everything out. I had a notepad where I was writing everything out. It was everywhere. So I was always on top of how much and how far away we were. And that's kind of what, seeing that number chip away and get smaller and smaller and smaller is really kind of what kept me going.
And the whiteboard still exists.
It's still in use today.
Awesome. So what are you guys working on now and next, now that you guys paid off that the credit card debt? Did you guys take a little break? Did you all scale back on the percentage now that's going towards debt? What's your next steps? And because I know that you all have student loan, and then you said that you want to tackle the house after that. So what's your next goals and steps, and how are you approaching it?
I think I will say we kind of did dial back a little bit.
So
I like a short break.
Yeah, I felt like it was important for her because I feel like she sacrificed more than I did. So, finally get a couch and, get a bedstand and stuff. So it was, we I was like, all right, we'll loosen up a little bit. We'll get a little bit of stuff. But then literally, she's seen me. I've been writing out the numbers, and I'm like, hey, if we want to pay this off in 3 years, this is what we got to do. If we want to pay it off in 2 years, this is what we got to do. If this 1 year, this is what we got to do.
Right.
And I was like, hey, realistically, we can pay off your student loan in 8 months. That's something that's very viable for us. And then
And
I was
how
like,
much?
the house.
How much is left on your student loans?
19,000, or is it 20?
It's
Y'all
20,000.
Okay, so 20,000.
If y'all can knock out 15,000 in 7 months, you all definitely can do that. You all have what it takes.
Right. I know, that's the thing. It's like, but I mean, I think we do. I came home from something, and then there was the whiteboard. He was like, okay, I did these calculations. I'm like, oh, here we go. He was like, this is how much we would need to pay on. He was like, if we wanted to be slightly lenient, he's like, we could have your student loans paid off in the next year. And then he wants to get the house paid off in 8. So he wrote out a plan on how to get rid of my student loans in a year and how to pay off the house in the next 8 years.
Yeah. And I'm pretty good at tracking all of our expenses. So before we got married, actually, I tracked all of our expenses for our wedding. So I knew where the money was going. I knew who was going to, how everything. I had a pie chart and all that stuff, like a graph. It was beautiful, right? And I have that same thing for our budget. So I know how much we're paying for car insurance, how much for food, like estimated, and then I have almost like an actual, so I can take money. I see how much we're actually spending from month to month, and how much we're actually, staying under our budget in those areas. And that money gets saved up on the side to put towards debt.
How has this journey thus far that you all have been on affected your marriage?
I think it's definitely made it a lot better.
Agreed.
At first, when we first started it, it was a lot more stressful.
Yes.
And just starting out being married and like trying to tackle something so big, it really does test you, to say the least. So I know from my standpoint, I'm kind of more, I can stay focused a little bit easier with less, but for her, it's, she's a little bit more emotional. So I have to keep, poking and prodding and, hey, let's go in this direction. Hey, I'll hug you.
And I'm a little bit more social too. So there's that part too, where I'm always like, well, this person's doing this, or this event's going on, or da 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 da. But I feel like for our marriage, it's kind of, I feel like looking to the future is actually more encouraging. Like we have a lot more talks about like, this is going to be so great when we can do this. This is going to be so great when we can do that.
Yeah.
And so budgeting and making those decisions, actually, I think it's encouraged both of us. But I feel like it also, like, we always have something to look forward to as a couple, almost, if you will. Not just on like, oh yay, we can't wait till this is paid off, but like, oh yay, I can't wait till we can afford to do this. Or it's going to be so awesome when we get to go on this kind of trip.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's allowed both of us to try to pour into the people around us. I mean, you can't force people to make good financial decisions, but you can definitely give them advice. And I'm like, it's like, I feel encouraged to like share with them, like, you could make that decision or you can make this decision. But again, like, nothing's ever the end all be all.
I know for me, I've inspired my coworkers from bringing lunch almost every day. I've inspired them to start bringing their lunch, so they're saving a lot. And then I've also started helping a few of them with their budgets and stuff, because I actually had them over for a barbecue. That's one of those luxury things we gave up, but we could, it's, brand new house, brand new barbecue. So testing out the grill. I had them over and they actually saw the sign that she had made and they were like, I need help with that too. So it's funny, like, to see how, when you accomplish something, it can affect everybody else around you, and they're wanting to get that too.
Yep, it almost becomes contagious. That's why we always tell people that there's somebody else counting on you. You're not just doing it for yourself, but there's others that are watching and they're going to be able to apply exactly what you did and achieve freedom and success. So
It's
kudos to you
so
guys.
true.
And
It's so true.
for the record, not only did Luan get a couch, but Anthony got a grill. Let's not leave that out.
Right.
He got a grill. He snuck that in there. He bought him a grill.
He did. He did. He did.
So you guys are kicking butt. You're in the
That's
middle of your journey to debt freedom, but there are some people listening who are contemplating whether or not to even start. They know it's a good idea, but they're just not sure if they can do it. They're not sure if their circumstances will permit them to make the type of progress that you all have made so far. How would you encourage them?
I would say start with the first dollar. Take, like you can always. I'm a big believer in incremental goals. So like you start with $1 this month, and you start with $2 next month, and you move that up, and then you figure out a way to keep progressing that goal until you get to $12, $15, $20, $50, $100. And I feel like because of that small increment, it makes it way easier for you to focus on and achieve, and it makes you way more happy. You're a lot happier to achieve that next month.
True. And I would say, if they can start maybe with community, try to find other people that might be interested in, or someone that you can be accountable with, whether it's your significant other, or whether it's just a friend or a coworker or something like that. And again, just start with the small steps, whether it's choosing to do envelopes, like, okay, I'm only going to allow myself this much for entertainment this month, or cutting back, like if you eat out multiple times a day, scale back, like, okay, start cutting out one meal eating out a day and eat at home and save that money and put it towards something else. That's what I would say to encourage them, because it really is those little split decisions here and there that start to amount to bigger things.
Yeah, and I know one thing that was really instrumental for Luan was, scaling back on her social media, because when we first started it, she saw her friends going on trips. She saw her friends, getting these things. They're getting, brand new rings, brand new like stuff. They have a brand new couch. They're painting their living room, all that stuff.
New cars.
And we are sitting on a hardwood floor, right? So
that's true too.
It was something that she had to. I encouraged her to keep pushing forward, but it was her that actually took that initiative to go through and be like, all right, I gotta start filling my head with more positive images of, hey, this is things that are going to push her towards her goal.
That's true. Social media is a big one. I feel like for our age now, the time that we're in, and I feel like a lot of people, they're like aware of it, but they also forget that like your social media is like your highlight reel. And so people are always going to post their best things, realistic or not realistic. And you really don't even know what extremes these people are going through to get some of the things that they're posting. And so don't live trying to keep up with the Joneses of social media, because sometimes that can be discouraging. And so either just taking a complete social media fast, or do what I did, and I'm doing again, and going through and just like cleaning it up. I mean, I've even started getting rid of celebrities, because I was like, I don't need to see all their fancy stuff all the time. And then I followed like a million different pages when I was getting married. So I started deleting all those random things I followed, when I was trying to get wedding ideas. But all these like things that are seemingly so glamorous, like they don't need to be there. And what I find is like, actually now I like to follow entrepreneurial women. It's a lot of the new people that I've realized I'm following more. Different people that are in debt-free journeys, things like that, because it's more inspiring to me. It keeps me going. And then I'm like, ooh, if they could do it, I can do it. Like, it's kind of like rooting for somebody else,
Yeah, and I also feel like one of the things that really kept us going was reading. So that if you can find almost, as she said, like a community almost plug into you that can fill, it'll take up more positivity in your life. And when you start hearing it over and over again and over and over again, you start to believe it more. So I feel like from those and reading, it really can take off by itself.
What are some books that you would recommend people check out?
So I'm an avid reader. I've read Dave Ramsey's Plan. That's a really good financial one.
Total Money Makeover.
Total Money Makeover. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read that actually back in high school.
Think and Grow Rich is really
Think
good.
and Grow Rich. The Slide Edge.
The Compound Effect. I'm currently reading You Are a Badass, and that's really good.
All right,
I'm reading through the Compound Effect again.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll be sure to link up those book recommendations in the show notes of this episode. You guys, listen, y'all are doing the thing.
Yes, you guys are.
We are proud of you all for enduring all that you've had to endure, putting your focus on the big goals of debt freedom and not letting anything stop you or take you off track. So we are cheering you both on. We congratulate you for the progress that you have made thus far.
Yes.
And we can't wait to see you cross that finish line. Thanks for
Yes.
coming on and sharing with our audience today.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. The pleasure was ours. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.